Hello students, I am sure you have revised the important information which we studied in the previous lesson. In today's session, we will understand the basics of latitudes and longitudes. So today we are going to start a new chapter, and the name of this chapter is Parallels and Meridians. Children, in this lesson, you will learn about the lines of latitudes and longitudes, the northern and southern hemisphere, as well as about the global grid. Look at this picture. You will notice that you have studied about it in the previous lesson. Yes, this is a globe, a small model of the Earth. As we have studied, it shows us the shape and location of the continents, oceans, and seas on a smaller scale. It also shows the shape and location of countries and the location of important cities. Now look at the second picture. This is also a picture of the globe. And if you observe it carefully, you will find some vertical and horizontal lines. To find any place on a globe or a map, we use a system of imaginary lines which run from east to west and north to south. So these imaginary lines are known as the latitudes and longitudes. Now, the two endpoints of the axis of rotation are called the poles. So, to the north is the North Pole and to the south is the South Pole. Now children, here as you can see, an imaginary line drawn midway between the North Pole and the South Pole, which divides the Earth into two equal parts. This line is the longest line of latitude and it's known as the equator. Okay, so midway between the poles is an imaginary line circling the Earth. It is called the equator. And this equator divides the Earth into two equal halves called the hemispheres. So to the north of the equator is the northern hemisphere and the south of the equator is the southern hemisphere. Now, let's talk about features of latitudes. Latitudes run parallel to each other in the east-west direction. Parallel means what, children? It means all these lines are having the same distance continuously between them. They are at an equal distance from each other. All of them form complete circles except the north and south poles, because these poles are points. So these poles cannot form complete circle. The latitudes decrease in length as you move from the equator to the poles, whether it is South Pole or North Pole. And the last one is the equator is the most important of all and is called the gate circle. So the equator is also called gate circle. There are 181 parallels or lines of latitude. The equator is at 0 degree. The North Pole is 90 degree north and the South Pole is 90 degrees south. Thus, the latitude of a place tells you how far north or south a place is from the equator. Okay. Now, lines of latitude are labeled in degrees, and just now what did we say? The equator is at 0 degree and the other parallels are marked from 0 degree to 90 degree. The parallels are also marked as N or S according to their location apart from their values. The North Pole is written as 90° N, okay, and the South Pole is written as 90° South. So there are 90 parallels in the northern hemisphere and 90 parallels in the southern hemisphere. Now I'm sure you must have understood about the equator, okay, which is at 0°. The North Pole 90° N and the South Pole 90° S. Okay, so there are 4 other important parallels. Now let's see their names. Tropic of Cancer 23.5° N. Now 23.5° N means it is there in the northern hemisphere. Okay, Tropic of Capricorn 23.5° South. Why S? Because it is there in the southern hemisphere. Arctic Circle 66.5 N and Antarctic Circle 66.5° S. Now children, can you see another set of line on this globe? Yes. So there is another set of lines which run from north to south on the globe. These lines are known as meridians or lines of longitude. So these meridians are imaginary lines that run from north to south. The longitude running through the old Royal Observatory at Greenwich, which is near London, is marked 0°. It is called the Greenwich Meridian or the Prime Meridian. There are 360 degrees of longitude, 180 degrees of longitude east of the Prime Meridian and 180 degrees of longitude west of the Prime Meridian. Now, this Prime Meridian is the starting point for numbering the meridians. It is marked as 0°. The longitude of a place is measured east or west of the Prime Meridian. Okay? The equator divides the whole earth into 2 equal halves, right? In the same way, this Prime Meridian also divides the earth into 2 halves, that is the eastern hemisphere and the western hemisphere. A full circle is made up of 360 degrees. So again I'm repeating, there are 180 meridians towards the east of the Prime Meridian and 180 meridians towards the west of the Prime Meridian. This makes a total of 360 meridians. The meridians in the east are marked as E and those towards the west are marked as W. Now, let's read features of longitudes. The lines of longitude are semicircles that run from one pole to other pole. They run in a true north-south direction and the latitudes and longitudes cut each other at right angles. The 180° east and 180° west longitudes meet and form a single line on the opposite side of the world, which is called the 180° longitude or the international dateline. So what did you understand, children? The meridians of 180° E and 180° W form the same line known as the international dateline. Thus, the longitude of a place tells you how much east or west of the Greenwich Meridian the place is located. Now let's talk about how to locate places. The latitudes and longitudes together form a network of lines or a grid on the globe. This is known as the global grid. So if we know the longitude and latitude of a place, we can locate it on the global grid. So the point at which a latitude and longitude meet, it helps us to locate a place. Now children, let's discuss some important points which we learned in this lesson. A globe is a small model of the earth. The equator is an imaginary line encircling the earth midway between the poles. It divides the earth into two equal halves called hemispheres. Latitudes are horizontal lines drawn on a globe or map that go around the earth parallel to the equator. Longitudes are vertical lines drawn on a globe or a map that run from North Pole to the South Pole. And if we know the latitude and longitude of a place, we can locate it on the global grid. Children, as you know, after each session, you are asked some questions. So here are your questions, and you need to write the answers of the given questions in your notebook. Thank you, students.